The space in Sector 88 was very quiet. It had been quiet for a long time. In the star maps of the Zenthi Empire, this place was called the Dead Zone. It was a large ball of space that no one could enter. A strange wall of gravity hid everything inside it. For thousands of years, no one knew what was behind the wall. High Commander Vax stood on the bridge of his big warship. He looked out at the dark space. He was a tall alien with gray skin and sharp eyes. He did not care about history. He did not care about the past. He only wanted money and power. He believed there was treasure inside the Dead Zone. He thought maybe there were old planets with gold or rare metals. "Commander," a pilot said from the control pit, "the mining lasers are ready. We are at full power." Vax nodded. "Fire them. Break that wall open." Huge green beams of light shot out from the Zenthi ships. They hit the invisible wall in front of them. The space shook. Sparks flew in the silence of the void. Vax smiled. He had waited a long time for this. The wall had stood for 11,000 years, but today it would break. Slowly, the invisible barrier began to dissolve. It looked like water disappearing in the sun. The sensors on Vax's ship beeped loudly. "Sir," the science officer said, looking confused. "The barrier is down, but there are no planets inside." Vax walked forward. "What is inside, then? Dust? Rocks?" "No, sir," the officer said, his voice shaking. "Ships, thousands of ships." Vax looked at the main screen. The fog cleared away. He saw them. They were not elegant or smooth like Zenthi ships. They were big, ugly blocks of gray metal. They looked like floating bricks. They were covered in thick armor and had big guns that looked like pipes. They drifted in the dark, completely silent. There were no lights on them. They looked dead. "Just old junk," Vax laughed. "A graveyard. We can sell the metal. Move the fleet forward. Let's start cutting them up." But Vax was wrong. It was not a graveyard. It was a bedroom. Inside the biggest ship, the heavy cruiser called the U.S. Reclaimer, the air was very cold. It was dark. The only light came from small orange lamps on the floor. In the center of the ship, there was a large room filled with rows of glass pods. Inside each pod, a human was sleeping. They were floating in a blue gel dot. Suddenly, a red light flashed on the ceiling. A low alarm started to buzz. It was not a loud noise, but it was steady. System alert. Perimeter breach. Wake up protocol initiated. The computer voice echoed in the empty halls. It was a simple AI named Eve. She had been watching for a long time. Now she had work to do. In pod 104, the blue gel began to drain away. Captain John Vance took his first breath in a very long time. He gasped loudly. The air tasted old. It tasted like metal and stale dust. His lungs burned. He coughed and pushed against the glass lid of his pod. His muscles felt stiff and heavy, like they were made of stone. The glass lid hissed and opened. John sat up. He was shivering. He was wet and cold. He looked around the room. Other pods were opening too. Men and women were waking up, coughing and gasping just like him. John rubbed his face. His head hurt. The last thing he remembered was the speech from the general. They were going to sleep for 100 years. Just 1 century. They had to wait for the great sickness to pass. The plague was killing everyone on Earth, so the fleet went into the dark to hide and sleep until it was safe. He climbed out of the pod. His legs were weak, but he forced himself to stand. He was a soldier. Soldiers did not stay down. He grabbed a towel from the rack and dried his face. "Eve," John croaked. His voice was rough. "Status report." The ice voice came from the wall speakers. "Welcome back, Captain Vance. The ship is waking up. Reactor is at 50%. John walked to the locker and pulled out his uniform. It felt tight. He put on his boots. How long, Eve? Did we make it to 100 years? There was a pause. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Captain, Eve said softly, you slept longer than planned. John stopped. He looked at the digital clock on the wall. It was flickering. The numbers were spinning. Then they stopped. Year, 13,402. John stared at the number. He did the math in his head. It wasn't 100 years. 11,000 years, John whispered. We slept for 11,000 years. He felt sick. Everyone he knew back on Earth was gone. Not just gone, but ancient history. The cities, the mountains, the oceans, everything would be different. Maybe humans didn't even exist anymore. Maybe they were the last ones left. Captain, Eve said, her voice more urgent now. Sensors detect unknown vessels outside. They are firing low-power lasers at our hull. They are trying to cut us. John's eyes snapped open wide. The sadness vanished. The soldier was back. Someone is attacking us? John asked. Yes, sir. Alien design. Unknown configuration. John grabbed his jacket and ran to the door. He moved fast. His stiffness was gone. He ran down the metal hallway. The lights on the ship were turning from orange to red. Combat mode. He passed other crew members. They looked confused and scared. Get to your stations. John yelled at them. This is not a drill. We have company. He reached the bridge of the ship. It was a small room packed with screens and buttons. It wasn't fancy like the alien ships outside. It was built to be tough. Lieutenant Alice Moore was already there. She was typing fast on her console. Captain on deck. She yelled. John strapped himself into the captain's chair. Talk to me more. What are we looking at? Sir, Alice said, pointing to the main screen. I have 12 targets. They look like mining ships, but they have heavy weapons. They just breached the gravity field. They think we are scrap metal. John looked at the screen. He saw the sleek, glowing ships of the Zenthi. They looked soft. They looked expensive. Do they know we are awake? John asked. No, sir, Alice said. They are scanning us, but our systems were in deep sleep. To them, we look like cold rocks. John looked at the tactical map. The rest of the human fleet was waking up too. Thousands of ships. Destroyers, carriers, battleships. A whole armada of iron and nuclear fire, sleeping in the dark. And these strangers had just walked in and kicked them. Hail them, John said. Open a channel. Use a wide frequency. I want everyone in this sector to hear us. Channel open, sir, the comms officer said. John leaned forward. He didn't know who was out there. He didn't know what the galaxy was like after 11,000 years. But he knew one thing. You don't touch a sleeping tiger. This is Captain John Vance of the United Space Command, John said into the microphone. His voice was calm and deep. You are firing on sovereign human vessels. You have made a mistake. Power down your weapons and back away. If you do not, we will view this as an act of war. Outside, on the Zenthi ship, High Commander Vax heard the message. The translation machine struggled to understand the old language. When it finally translated the words, Vax laughed. Humans? Vax sneered. The primitives? They should be dust by now. Ignore them. Continue the operation. Cut that ship open. On the reclaimer, the ship shook as a laser hit the armor. It didn't do much damage. The human ships were built to survive nuclear bombs. A mining laser was like a mosquito bite. John felt the vibration. He looked at Alice. They are not stopping, sir, Alice said. They are laughing at us. John Vance sat back in his chair. He looked at the stars. He had woken up into a nightmare. Everyone was dead. The galaxy had forgotten them. And now, these strangers wanted to turn his ship into scrap metal. He felt a cold anger rising in his chest. "Eve," John said. "Unlock the weapon systems. Prime the main batteries. Load the kinetic cannons." "Weapons priming," Eve replied. "Target locked." John looked at the screen where the Zenthi ship was glowing arrogantly. "They think we are dead," John said softly. "Let's show them we are just getting started. Fire." High Commander Vax stood on the bridge of his beautiful ship. It was white and smooth, like a pearl floating in the ocean. He watched the green laser beams hit the human ship called the Reclaimer. He expected the gray boxy ship to explode. He expected fire and broken metal, but nothing happened. The green beams hit the gray metal of the human ship. The metal turned red. It smoked. Some of the outer layer melted away like wax on a candle. But the ship did not break. The laser stopped, and the ugly gray ship was still there. It had a black scar on its side, but it was still flying. "Report!" Vax yelled. He was angry. "Why is it not destroyed?" The science officer looked at his screen. His hands were shaking. "Commander, their armor is very thick. It is not made of energy. It is just layers and layers of dense metal. Our lasers are burning it, but there is too much of it." Vax growled. "Increase power. Burn them out." On the bridge of the Reclaimer, the mood was very different. The ship shook when the lasers hit. It sounded like a giant hammer hitting a bell. The floor vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling pipes. Captain John Vance held onto his chair. He looked at the damage report on his screen. "Armor holding at 90%, Eve said. Her voice was calm. "The ablative coating is doing its job. The heat is dissipating." John smiled. It was a cold smile. The aliens were using energy weapons. Energy weapons were fancy. They were clean. But human ships were built for dirty wars. They were built to take a beating. "Get me Admiral Carter on the flagship," John ordered. A face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Bill Carter looked like a man carved from granite. He had gray hair and a scar on his chin. He was on the bridge of the USC Washington, the biggest ship in the fleet. "Good morning, Captain Vance," Carter said. "Nice of you to join the party." "Good morning, Admiral," John replied. "Our guests are knocking on the door very loudly." Carter nodded. He looked at the tactical map. "I see that. They are rude guests. They didn't even wait for us to have coffee. Do you have your birds ready to fly?" "Yes, sir," John said. "Fighter squadrons are in the tubes." "Good," Carter said. "Launch them. Let's teach these people a lesson about physics." Down in the flight deck of the Reclaimer, the air smelled like oil and fuel. It was noisy. Mechanics were running around. Sirens were wailing. Lieutenant Alice Moore climbed into her fighter ship. Her ship was called an Interceptor. It did not look like the alien ships. It was not smooth. It was a triangle of sharp metal. It looked mean. It had big engines on the back and big guns on the wings. It wasn't designed to be pretty. It was designed to kill. Alice strapped herself into the seat. The cockpit was tight. There were no holographic screens or mind control helmets. There were physical switches, buttons, and a heavy joystick. She flipped a row of switches. The engines roared to life behind her. The whole ship vibrated. "Green leader standing by," Alice said into her radio. "Squadron is ready." "Launch," the flight controller said. The clamps holding her ship released. Alice pushed the throttle forward. Her fighter shot out of the launch tube. The G-force pushed her back into her seat. It felt heavy and real. She flew out into the black space. She saw the Zenthi fleet. They looked like toys. They were glowing with soft blue and pink lights. They moved gracefully, like fish in water. Target the lead frigate, Alice ordered her squadron. Switch to mass drivers. Save your missiles. The Zenthi fighters saw the humans coming. The alien ships turned fast. They were very agile. They fired blue bolts of plasma at Alice and her team. Alice pulled her joystick hard to the right. Her ship was heavy, but it had massive thrusters. She dodged the blue fire. One of her wingmen, a pilot named Dave, was not so lucky. A plasma bolt hit his wing. The armor sparked, but the ship stayed together. "I'm okay," Dave yelled over the radio. "Just a scratch. These guys hit like a weak wind." Alice lined up her crosshairs on a Zenthi fighter. She didn't have a laser. She had a 30mm rotary cannon. It fired heavy bullets made of depleted uranium. She squeezed the trigger. The gun on her wing spun. Brrt! The sound vibrated through her hull. A stream of hot metal slugs flew across the space. They didn't move at the speed of light, but they moved fast enough. The Zenthi pilot tried to use his shield. The energy shield shimmered. It was designed to stop energy. It was designed to stop lasers and heat. It was not designed to stop a solid brick of metal moving at high speed. The bullets ignored the shield completely. They smashed into the smooth white hull of the alien ship. The alien ship didn't just break. It shattered. The kinetic energy tore it apart. 1 second it was a beautiful ship. The next it was a cloud of dust and debris. "Splash one," Alice said. "Their shields are paper." Repeat, "Their shields are paper." Back on the Zenthi command ship, panic was starting to spread. High Commander Vax watched his fighter screens going dark one by one. "What is happening?" Vax screamed. "Why are our shields not working?" "Sir," the tactical officer yelled. "They are using projectile weapons. They are throwing rocks at us." "Rocks?" Vax was confused. "That is primitive. That is impossible. The rocks are moving very fast, sir. The computer cannot adapt the shields. The frequency is wrong." Vax looked out the window. The ugly human ships were moving forward. They did not dance. They did not weave. They moved in a straight line, like a wall of iron. On the USC Washington, Admiral Carter watched the battle unfold. He stood with his hands behind his back. "They rely too much on tech," Carter said to his officer. "They forgot that Sir Isaac Newton is the deadliest man in space." He pointed to the Zenthi cruiser that was leading the attack. It was Vax's ship. "Captain Vance," Carter said over the comms. "Do you see that big one in the middle?" "I see him, Admiral," John Vance replied from the reclaimer. "Introduce yourself," Carter said. "Use the main railgun." "With pleasure," John said. On the reclaimer, John turned to Eve. "Load the spinal mount. Solid tungsten slug. Maximum charge." "Charging," Eve said. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a second. The power of the reactor was being channeled into the magnetic rails that ran the entire length of the ship. "Target locked," the weapons officer said. "Fire." John said softly. The ship shuddered violently. A boom echoed through the hull, loud enough to be heard even in the vacuum of the ship's internal air. From the nose of the reclaimer, a metal slug the size of a small car was launched. It was not a laser. It made no light. It was just a cold, hard piece of metal moving at a fraction of the speed of light. It crossed the distance between the two fleets in a blink of an eye. High. Commander Vax didn't even see it coming. One moment, his shields were at full power. The next moment, the entire ship lurched to the side. The slug slammed into the front of his cruiser. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply punched a hole. It went through the front shields. It went through the front armor. It went through the decks, the cargo hold, the engineering bay, and the rear engine block. It exited out the back of the ship, spinning away into space. The Zenthi cruiser was essentially impaled. The shockwave of the impact crumpled the internal hallways. Power lines snapped. The artificial gravity failed. Vax was thrown to the floor. Smoke filled the bridge. "Damage report." He coughed. "We have a hole through the entire ship." The pilot screamed. "Reactor is offline. Engines are dead. We are drifting." Vax crawled to the window. He looked at the gray brick of a ship that had fired at him. It sat there, dark and imposing. Smoke curled lazily from its main gun port. "Who are these people?" Vax whispered. Dot on the reclaimer. John Vance watched the alien ship go dark. It was listing to the side, leaking atmosphere and fluid. "Good hit," John said. "Eve, recharge the main gun. Pick the next target." "Recharging," Eve said. The battle was not over, but the momentum had changed. The Zenthi had come to rob a grave. They had come to pick over the bones of a dead civilization. They thought they were gods because they had shiny lights and fast ships, but the humans had woken up. And the humans brought with them the old ways of war. They brought iron and fire, and the crushing weight of simple physics. Alice Moore spun her interceptor around, looking for another target. She saw a Zenthi destroyer trying to run away. "Oh no, you don't," she muttered. She pushed the throttle. Her engines roared. She chased the fleeing ship, her mass drivers spinning up for another run. The silence of the galaxy was over. The noise of humanity had returned, and it was very, very loud. The bridge of the Zenthi command ship was a mess. It used to be clean and bright, but now it was dark and full of smoke. The air smelled like burning plastic. High Commander Vax coughed and wiped black soot from his face. He held onto a railing to stay standing. His beautiful ship was broken. There was a giant hole running through the middle of it, punched by the human metal slug. "Status report," Vax screamed. His voice sounded thin and scared in the smoky room. "Where are my reinforcements? Why are we not firing back?" The tactical officer looked up from his console. His face was pale green with fear. "Sir, we cannot fire back. Half of our weapons are offline." "The other ships?" "They are being destroyed." Vax looked at the main screen. It was flickering, but he could still see the battle. It was a slaughter. The Zenthi ships were trying to fight, but they were confused. They were used to fighting other energy ships. They were used to lasers that burned and shields that blocked heat. They did not know how to fight flying bricks of iron. He watched as a Zenthi frigate tried to turn away. A swarm of human missiles chased it. These were not energy torpedoes. They were physical rockets with chemical engines. They moved fast and erratic. The Zenthi point defense lasers tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles slammed into the frigate. Explosions ripped the hull apart. There was no clean cut, just fire and tearing metal. "They fight like animals," Vax whispered. "They are dirty. They are brutal." He turned to his science officer. The science officer was a young Zenthi named Kale. Kale was hiding behind his station, typing furiously on his holographic keyboard. He was shaking. "Kale!" Vax shouted. "You said you would identify them. Who are these monsters? I want to know who is killing us." Kale stood up slowly. He looked terrified. He held a datapad in his hands. "Commander, I had to go deep. I had to look into the Forbidden's archives. The data is very old. It is from the Age of Ash. I don't care how old it is." Vax yelled. "Tell me." Kale swallowed hard. He pressed a button, and an image appeared on the central table. It was a rotating hologram of a human in heavy combat armor. The human was holding a rifle. The image was grainy and low quality because it was thousands of years old. "The translation matrix struggled," Kale said, his voice trembling. "The language is dead. But I found a name. They call themselves Terrans." Vax stared at the image. Terrans? I have never heard of them. They existed before the Great Peace, Kale explained. Before the Galactic Council was strong. The archives say they were persistence predators. What does that mean? Vax asked. It means they do not stop, Kale said. They do not give up. Most species fight for resources or territory. The archives say that Terrans fought for survival. They fought when they were losing. They fought when they were dead. They are specialists in kinetic warfare. Vax looked at the screen where his fleet was burning. Kinetic warfare. Throwing rocks. Yes, Kale said. The galaxy moved on. We developed shields to stop lasers and plasma. We forgot about solid matter. We forgot that if you throw a rock fast enough, it hits with the force of a nuclear bomb. Our shields are useless against them, Commander. We are wearing raincoats, and they are shooting bullets. Vax felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had made a terrible mistake. He thought he was robbing a grave. He thought he was waking up weak ghosts. Instead, he had walked into the den of a sleeping bear and poked it with a stick. They are not just soldiers, Kale continued, reading from the pad. The archives call them the engineers of death. They strapped engines to asteroids. They split atoms just to make fire. They destroyed their own planet twice and survived. Commander, we cannot win this. On the other side of the battlefield, on the bridge of the USC reclaimer, Captain John Vance watched the enemy formation break apart. The Zenthi ships were no longer attacking. They were running. They were scattering like frightened birds. They are retreating, sir, Lieutenant Alice Moore said. Her voice came over the radio from her fighter. They are dumping their cargo and running for the warp jump points. John Vance stood tall. He did not smile. There was no joy in killing these people. They were foolish, but they were alive. However, John knew that mercy could be a mistake. If he let them go without a lesson, they might come back with more ships. Let them run, John said. But make sure they remember this day. He turned to his comms officer, Harry Cole. Harry, is the long-range transmitter working? Yes, Captain, Harry said. I can broadcast to the entire sector. But the equipment is old. It will be a messy signal. That's fine, John said. I don't need it to be pretty. I need it to be loud. John walked to the center of the bridge. He looked at the camera. He straightened his uniform. He was tired. He was 11,000 years old. But he was the voice of humanity now. Open the channel, John ordered. Broadcasting, Harry said. John Vance spoke clearly. He knew that his voice was being carried across light years. He knew that listening posts on distant worlds would hear him. He knew the Zenthi were hearing him. This is the United Space Command, John said. We have been sleeping for a long time. We woke up to find thieves at our door. We have dealt with the thieves. He paused. He looked at the tactical screen where the Zenthi ships were warping away in panic. To the rest of the galaxy, John continued. We do not want war. We are tired. We just want to sit on our porch and watch the stars. But listen carefully. The old maps are wrong. This is not the dead zone. This is our home. If you come here with open hands, we will welcome you. But if you come here with weapons... John leaned closer to the camera. His eyes were hard like steel. If you come here with weapons, we will wake up fully. And you will not like what happens when we get out of bed. Stay away from Sector 88. This is Terran space. Vance out. He cut the feed. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then, the crew let out a breath they had been holding. Do you think they understood? Alice asked over the radio. They understood, John said. Fear is a universal language. Back on the Zenthi ship, the message played over the speakers. Vax listened to the translation. He heard the warning. He looked at the devastation around him. His fleet was gone. His career was over. Terran space, Vax whispered. The science officer, Kale, looked at his datapad again. Commander, there is one more thing in the archives. What? Vax snapped. It says that when the Terrans go to war, they do not fight alone, Kale said. It says they have friends, or pets. I am not sure of the word. But they pack bond with anything. Vax didn't understand, but he didn't care. Get us out of here. Activate the warp drive. I never want to see this sector again. The damaged Zenthi cruiser limped away, engaging its warp drive with a flash of light. They left behind the debris of their arrogance. John Vance watched them go. He sat back in his chair. The adrenaline was fading, and now he just felt the heavy weight of time. Eve, John said. Scan the rest of the fleet. How many did we lose? We lost 3 destroyers and 1 cruiser during the initial bombardment, Eve replied softly. Casualty count is 2,000 souls. John closed his eyes. 2,000 people who survived the plague and the long sleep, only to die 10 minutes after waking up because of some greedy aliens. Mark their names, John said. We will build a memorial later. Right now we have work to do. We need to repair the ships. We need to find resources. Captain, the sensor officer called out. I am picking up a new signal. It is not Zenthi. It is coming from deep space. It is a high-band frequency. John looked up. Is it an attack? No, sir, the officer said. It is a hail. It is coming from the Galactic Council. They saw the battle. They are asking for a meeting. John sighed. The neighbors had heard the noise. Now the police were coming. Tell them to wait, John said. Tell them we are having breakfast. If they want to talk, they can come to us. But tell them to leave their guns at the door. He stood up and looked at his crew. They were scared, tired, and confused. But they were alive. Good work, everyone, John said. We survived the wake-up call. Now let's see if we can survive the morning. The space around Sector 88 was filled with floating metal. The Zenthi fleet was gone. They had run away into the dark, leaving behind their broken ships and their pride. The human fleet did not chase them. Instead, the human ships moved closer together. They formed a tight ball. The heavy battleships were on the outside, and the smaller repair ships were on the inside. It was a defensive formation. It was a wall of iron. On the bridge of the super dreadnought USC Washington, Admiral Bill Carter watched the sensors. He was an old man. He had gray hair cut very short and a face that looked like worn leather. He stood with his back straight. He did not look like a man who had just woken up from an 11,000-year nap. He looked like a statue of a soldier. Admiral, the sensor officer called out. We have new contacts. Massive energy signatures. They are dropping out of warp. Is it the Zenthi again? Carter asked calmly. No, sir, the officer replied. These signatures are different. They are much larger. And there are hundreds of them. Space tore open. It did not look like the rough, violent warp jumps of the human ships. It looked like a curtain being pulled back. Golden light flooded the dark void. One by one, the new ships appeared. They were beautiful. They were not built from blocks of metal like the human ships. They were curved and elegant. Some looked like giant glass needles. Others looked like glowing rings of white light. They hummed with a soft musical energy. This was the fleet of the Galactic Council. The 12 elder races who ruled the galaxy had come to see what was making so much noise. Captain John Vance's voice came over the radio. Admiral, that is a lot of firepower. They look very advanced. They are pretty, Carter admitted. But pretty doesn't win fights. Stand your ground, Captain. Don't fire unless I give the order. The Council fleet moved forward. They surrounded the human ball of ships. They did not attack. They just floated there, shining like jewels. A communication channel opened. A hologram appeared on the bridge of the Washington. It was a tall, slender creature in flowing blue robes. It had 4 eyes and skin that shimmered like a pearl. It looked down at Admiral Carter with a look of pity and arrogance. "Attention, unknown vessels," the creature said. Its voice was melodic, translated by the computer. "I am High Counselor. Alara, you have violated the peace of the stars. You have used forbidden kinetic weapons in a civilized sector. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Admiral Carter walked into the light of the hologram. He did not bow. He did not look impressed. "I am Admiral William Carter of the United Space Command," he said. His voice was rough like gravel. "We did not start this fight. The Zenthi attacked us while we were sleeping. We just defended ourselves." The alien waved a long, thin hand. "The Zenthi are foolish children. But you are dangerous. Your weapons are primitive and cruel. Kinetic bombardment is outlawed by the Treaty of the 12 Suns. You must surrender your arms." Carter laughed. It was a dry, short sound. "Treaty? We went to sleep 11,000 years ago. We didn't sign any treaty. And we are not giving up our guns. Not today. Not ever." The counselor's eyes narrowed. "You are confused, primitive. Look at our fleet. We possess technology you cannot understand. We can fold space. We can harness the power of stars. If you do not submit, we will be forced to pacify you." Carter looked at the alien fleet on the screen. They were impressive. Their shields glowed with energy that could probably stop a laser from 1,000 miles away. But Carter knew something about physics. He knew that energy shields were designed to disperse heat. They were designed to stop plasma and light. They were not designed to stop a 20-ton slug of tungsten moving at 5% of the speed of light. "I don't want to fight you," Carter said. "But I won't surrender. How about a demonstration?" "A demonstration?" the alien asked, confused. "Yes," Carter said. "You think we are savages. You think we are weak because our ships are ugly. Let me show you what primitive weapons can do." Carter cut the connection. He turned to his weapon officer, a young man named Lieutenant Evans. "Lieutenant," Carter said, "do you see that moon behind their fleet?" Everyone looked at the main screen. Far behind the shiny council ships, there was a small, gray moon. It was a dead world of rock and dust, about the size of a small continent. "I see it, sir," Evans said. "Target it," Carter ordered. "Spinal railgun. Maximum velocity. Use a solid penetrator round." The bridge crew went silent. The spinal railgun on the Washington was the biggest gun humanity had ever built. It ran the entire length of the ship, a 3-kilometer-long magnetic barrel. It required the power of 3 nuclear reactors just to fire once. "Sir," Evans said, his hand hovering over the key. "Target is locked. The council ships are in the way, but the trajectory is clear. We will miss them by 10 kilometers. "Fire," Carter said. The lights on the Washington died. For 5 seconds, the ship was pitch black. The only sound was the deep, terrifying groan of the magnetic coils charging up. It felt like the ship was screaming. Then the gun fired. There was no flash of light. There was no laser beam. There was only a sudden violent jolt that threw everyone against their safety straps. A single projectile was ejected from the front of the ship. It was a solid rod of dense metal. Heavier than a tank. It moved so fast that the human eye could not see it. The council ships saw nothing. Their sensors were looking for energy buildup. They were looking for plasma or radiation. They did not detect a cold piece of metal moving through the dark. The slug flew past the lead council ship. It was so close that the wake of its passage caused the delicate alien ship to spin. Then, it hit the moon. The impact was silent in the vacuum of space, but the visual was terrifying. The slug struck the center of the rocky moon. It didn't just make a crater. It cracked the world. A massive plume of dust and rock exploded outwards. It looked like a volcano had erupted, but 1,000 times bigger. Cracks glowing with red magma spread across the surface of the moon like a spiderweb. The force of the impact was so great that debris was thrown miles into space. The moon shuddered. A huge chunk of its crust broke off and floated away. On the bridge of the Washington, the lights flickered back on. Admiral Carter stood watching the destruction on the screen. "Open the channel again," Carter said. The hologram of High Counselor Ilara reappeared. The alien was no longer looking at Carter with pity. All 4 of its eyes were wide open. Its mouth was hanging open. It was trembling. What was that?" The alien whispered. "We detected no energy spike. We detected no warhead. That was a rock," Carter said simply. "A very fast rock." He leaned closer to the camera. "We didn't use explosives. We didn't use antimatter. We just used math. That moon is dead rock, so no one got hurt. But I want you to imagine what that would do to one of your glass ships." The counselor looked at the moon, which was still crumbling on the screen. Then he looked back at the gray, ugly human ship. He realized something terrifying. The humans didn't need to break their shields. They didn't need to match their technology. The humans just needed to hit them. We did not know," the counselor stammered. "Now you know," Carter said. "We are not here to conquer. We are not here to break your treaties. We just want to live. But if you try to pacify us again, the next shot won't hit the moon." Carter paused to let the words sink in. "We are going to stay right here. We are going to fix our ships. And then we are going to find Earth. If you want to help, you are welcome. If you want to fight, well, I have plenty more rocks." The bridge of the Washington was quiet. The crew looked at their admiral with pride. They had been asleep for so long that they had forgotten how strong they were. The galaxy had become soft. It had become safe. It had forgotten the terrible power of simple things. "We will withdraw to a safe distance," the counselor said, bowing his head slightly. "We will discuss this with the council." "You do that," Carter said. "And tell them not to wake us up again unless it's important." The hologram faded. Outside, the beautiful glowing fleet of the council began to back away. They moved slowly, carefully. They gave the human sphere a lot of space. They treated the ugly gray ships like a nest of sleeping vipers. Admiral Carter let out a long breath. He sat down in his chair. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. "Good shooting, Evans," he said to the lieutenant. "Thank you, sir," Evans said. "I think I cracked the moon a little more than intended." "It made the point," Carter said. He looked out at the stars. They were still strangers in this time, but at least now they had room to breathe. The space between the 2 fleets was silent. The dust from the broken moon was still spreading out like a gray cloud. The ships of the Galactic Council stopped moving. They hung in the dark like frightened fish. They had come to this sector to arrest criminals. They had come to stop a primitive tribe from making noise. But now they realized the tribe was not primitive. It was dangerous. On the bridge of the USC Washington, Admiral Bill Carter waited. He did not blink. He watched the alien ships on his screen. His hands were folded behind his back. He knew that one wrong move would start a war that would burn the whole sector. "They are hailing us again," the comms officer said. "It is High Counselor Ilara." "Put him on," Carter said. The hologram appeared. The tall alien looked shaken. His 4 eyes were darting around, looking at the bridge, looking at the grim faces of the human crew. "Admiral Carter," the alien said. His voice was softer now. It was not arrogant. "We do not wish to escalate this conflict. We have seen your power. We believe. A conversation is necessary." Carter nodded slowly. A conversation sounds good. Much better than shooting moons. We wish to send a delegation, Alara said. A small shuttle, just diplomats. We want to understand who you are and what you want. Granted, Carter said, but send them to the Reclaimer. Captain Vance will meet you. He has more patience than I do. Carter cut the feed and called John Vance. John, they are coming over. Be polite, but don't let them think we are soft. Understood, Admiral, John said. I'll put on my best shirt. A small white shuttle detached from the lead council ship. It glided through space toward the USC Reclaimer. It looked like a drop of milk floating in the dark. It moved smoothly, using gravity drives that made no sound and left no trail. It approached the Reclaimer. The human ship looked like a mountain of scarred metal. The shuttle had to navigate past the massive gun turrets and the thick armor plates. It docked at the main airlock with a soft hiss. Inside the airlock, John Vance waited. He did not wear a dress uniform. He did not have medals on his chest. He wore his combat fatigues. They were stained with oil and sweat. He held his projectile rifle in his hands. It was an old weapon, made of black steel and wood. It looked heavy. Next to him stood Lieutenant Alice Moore. She was still in her flight suit. She held her helmet under her arm. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. Here they come, Alice whispered. The airlock cycled. The heavy inner door groaned as it slid open. Steam vented from the pipes. 3 aliens walked out. They were tall and very thin. They wore robes that seemed to be made of light. The fabric shimmered and changed color as they moved. They did not walk on the floor. They hovered an inch above the metal grating. The lead alien was High Counselor Alara. He looked at the rusty walls of the airlock. He looked at the exposed wires and the dripping water pipes. Then he looked at John Vance. He stared at the rifle in John's hands. Alara swallowed hard. He had never seen a weapon like that. It looked crude. It looked like a club that could shoot fire. I am Captain John Vance, John said. He did not bow. Welcome aboard the Reclaimer. Alara stepped forward. He tried to smile, but it looked awkward on his alien face. Greetings, Captain. I am Alara. We represent the Galactic Council, John nodded. You already met Admiral Carter. He is the one who broke your moon. Yes, Alara said quickly. A very impressive display. We did not know your species possessed such kinetic potential. There is a lot you don't know about us, John said. We have been asleep for a long time. Alara looked around the hallway. Why? Why did you sleep? The archives say you vanished 11,000 years ago. We thought you were extinct. We were sick, John said simply. A plague. It was killing everyone. We couldn't stop it. So we built these ships. We put everyone we could inside cryopods. We set the alarm clock and went to sleep, hoping the universe would be better when we woke up. John looked at the alien. We expected to sleep for 100 years. We slept for 11,000. And the first thing we see when we wake up is your friends trying to cut our ships into scrap metal. That was a mistake, Alara said. The Zenthi are greedy. They did not know you were alive. They know now, Alice said sharply. Alara looked at her, then back to John. Captain, the Council is worried. You have weapons that are forbidden. You are aggressive. We need to know your intentions. Do you plan to conquer this sector? Do you plan to attack the Council? John laughed. It was a tired sound. He lowered his rifle slightly. Look at us, John said. Look at my ship. It's old. It's falling apart. We are tired, Counselor. We don't want to conquer anything. We don't want to run the galaxy. We just want 5 minutes of peace. The aliens looked at each other. They seemed confused. They were used to warlords and empires who wanted land and power. They did not understand a soldier who just wanted to rest. So you will not attack? Alara asked. Not unless you make us, John said. We are awake now. We are going to fix our ships. We are going to grow food. We are going to live. John took a step forward. The aliens floated back nervously. "But I need something from you," John said. "What do you require?" Alara asked. "Gold? Technology? Energy cells?" "Maps," John said. "Maps?" Alara repeated. "The stars have moved," John said. I looked at the navigation computer. Nothing matches. "I need your star charts. I need to know where we are." John's voice became quiet. "And I need you to find a planet for me." "Which planet?" "Earth," John said. The word hung in the air. "Terra, the third rock from the yellow sun. It's our home. We left it burning. We need to know if it's still there." Alara tapped the device on his wrist. A hologram of the galaxy appeared between them. He scrolled through the sectors. He moved past the core worlds, past the trade routes, to a quiet arm of the spiral galaxy. Dottie zoomed in on a small yellow star. There was a planet there. It was blue and green. It looked wild and overgrown. "This system is under quarantine," Alara said. "It has been forbidden for 10,000 years. The Council declared it a nature preserve. It is called the Tomb of the Ancestors." John looked at the blue ball. Tears came to his eyes. It was still there. It had healed. The green forests had grown back over the gray cities. The oceans were blue again. "It's not a tomb," John whispered. "It's waiting for us." He looked at Alara. "That is all we want. Give us the coordinates. Let us go home. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone." Alara nodded. He transferred the data to John's personal pad. "You have the coordinates. The Council will grant you passage." We will stay out of your way." "Good," John said. "Thank you." The aliens turned to leave. They floated back into their white shuttle. Alara paused at the door. He looked back. At the human captain in his dirty clothes, holding his iron gun. "Captain Vance," Alara said. "The galaxy has been very quiet for a long time. It was safe, but it was boring. I think things are going to be very different now." "Maybe," John said. "Just remember to knock next time." The shuttle door closed. John watched the ship fly away. He felt a heavy weight lift off his shoulders. "Did we win?" Alice asked. "We didn't lose," John said. "That's close enough." He walked to the Walcoms unit. "Eve, patch me through to the fleet." "Channel open, Captain," the AI said. "Attention all ships," John said. "This is Vance. Stand down from combat alert. The shooting is over. We have the map." "We are going home." A cheer went up through the ship. It started on the bridge and echoed down through the decks. It was the sound of millions of people who had been lost in the dark, finally seeing a light. The human fleet began to turn. The massive engines fired up. Blue flames exhausted into the void. The great gray ships, scarred and ugly, moved together. They left Sector 88 behind. They left the Zenthi wreckage and the frightened Council fleet. They set a course for the small yellow sun. The galaxy watched them go. The elder races, the wise counselors, and the arrogant warriors all watched in silence. They updated their databases. They changed their maps. They wrote down a new rule in their history books. Do not wake the humans. Let them sleep. Because when they wake up, the galaxy remembers what fear looks like. And the galaxy remembered that the monsters under the bed were real, and they were going home.